And I looked up at the board and there was only 8 of us even answering calls for the entire city of Fresno.
A grand jury report now says Fresno's emergency dispatch centers are understaffed and underfunded. And if they don't start doing more work with the few bodies they have, the grand jury reports they could lose out on funding in the future. Fox 26, your hometown News Connection reporter Marie Ettinger spent some time in Fresno's Emergency Communications Center today. All right, Marie, what are the issues they're facing there?
Dispatchers are supposed to answer 95% of calls in 15 seconds or less. The grand jury report included this graphic showing how often dispatchers actually get to calls in under 15 seconds. Now, the best we have seen in the past decade was in 2015. 87.8% of calls answered on time on average that year. Remember, it's supposed to be 95. The worst average was the most recent year on record. That's 2017, with just 72.8% of calls answered on time.
Once we hit kind of like 10, 11 o'clock at night, I mean, everything happens all at the same time. No one gets to breathe.
Being a dispatcher is no walk in the park.
If you don't have the mindset and the personality for it, you're not going to make it. We hear stuff that people don't want to hear every day.
Fresno can get as many as 3,000 calls into 911 in a single day.
911, what's your emergency?
Right now, FPD's communication center has 88 dispatchers, which includes 6 supervisors and 7 temporary employees.
And I'm going to get us transferred over to the fire department. Do not hang up, okay?
They'd need 43 more dispatchers to keep up with the volume of calls they get.
Unfortunately, with the vacancies that we have and just the low staffing levels that we have, it's going to be very difficult to achieve that standard.
FPD asked for 13 dispatchers in fiscal year 2018 and got 0. Mayor Lee Brand prioritized hiring new officers instead.
If you can answer a call in 15 seconds, if you have nobody to respond to the call, it doesn't do any good.
For the 2019 fiscal year, the agency asked for 17 extra dispatchers and got 8.
The reality is the city just does not generate sufficient revenues to hire enough police officers and support staff like dispatchers.
The grand jury report says 57% of the calls coming into 911 are non-emergency or pocket dial calls. The mayor and police chief are asking the public to only use 911 when it's really necessary.
When people want the police, oftentimes they just simply call 911. But that should be reserved for those instances where it's either an in-progress crime or a life-threatening incident or some type of a medical emergency.
If it's something like a robbery that already happened, you call the non-emergency line, 621-7000. If it's a city matter, like a dangerous pothole or if you see graffiti, call 311 or use the Fresgo app. Otherwise, you could be holding up a dispatcher while someone with a real emergency is on hold.
Sometimes we're really strained, and it's hard.
If you'd like to follow or file a non-emergency report online that you think is more of a city matter rather than a criminal one, download the Fresgo app. It looks like that. It has tons of categories to help you out. So for instance, if you want to report a tree on the road or if you have an inquiry about a water quality issue, those can all be filed online or through the Fresgo app. Monty?
Marie, it's still quite amazing that so many of those calls, 57%, are accidental calls to 911.
Well, to be clear, it's 57% are either non-emergency or those pocket dial calls. So for instance, a lot of people are calling to report things like burglaries that have already occurred. That's a non-emergency call because you are not immediately in a life-threatening situation, and that should go to that non-emergency line that I talked about before.
So in just that one area, getting that message out could make a big difference.
Definitely, and they're really hoping it will, and they're hoping it'll put less strain on the dispatchers.
All right, Marie. And we want to mention also, you may have seen on the graphic, the area code 599. Of course, that was a mistake. It's 559. And there is some good news right now. There are 12 people going through background checks and training to become dispatchers. Bad news, though, the training process is a lengthy one, so it could be almost a year before those new hires are answering calls.
Although valley temperatures have been low or below normal for July, brace yourself for a round of intense heat. Chief Meteorologist Kevin Raymer joins us with why it's going to be so hot